So let's talk a little bit about some terminology here when it comes to images. So let's look at up here where it says image, and usually everything that you're dealing with is going to have image. Got image size and canvas size. So this is the canvas. Whatever you're drawing on is known as the canvas. Might seem self-explanatory to some, maybe not so much to everybody else. That's why I wanted to go over it. Your canvas is what you are drawing on. One of the important things to realize is image size. Now, it's going to give you pixel dimensions. Now, 4.98 megabytes. That means that is how big your file is going to be. However big your file is, the longer it will take to save. If you have more layers on it, then it's going to have it's just going to be a bigger file size. And I'll get into file extensions in a second. But what I want to show you is that if we're looking at 1600 is the width, that means that there are 1600 pixels going across. Going across this entire canvas is 1600. Going down is 817 pixels. We could change this. It says percent. It's at 100%. I don't really deal with that. Usually with pixels. The document size, it's going to say that this is 5.333 inches by 2.7233 inches. I don't want to start to bore you guys with anything, but if you can do it in pixels, it's going to match up to the top portion. If it's in inches, if you're going to print this out on paper, if you're going to print this out 11 by 17 or 8.5 by 11, 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17, then you want to pay attention to what the inches are. Now watch this. So I'm going to go 11. Now, right here where it says resample image, keep proportions, I'm going to say let's take the proportions off, because if I have a width of 11, let's have a height by 8.5, so that's regular. That would be typing paper or copy paper set on the side. So let's do this another way. So 8.5 by 11. So we can see that now this document jumps to 32 megabytes. 32 megabytes, and now you have the document is going to be a different size, but you're also going to have many more pixels. So the more pixels you have, the more detail you can use. It's pretty much how you want to look at it. So the height is going to be 33, and you're going to see that this is going to change dramatically. The resolution is 300 pixels per inch. I leave it on pixels per inch, and I keep my resolution at 300. If you want to go higher to 600, look at what happens. Your document's going to get bigger and your pixels are going to increase. If you got it down to 72, you're not going to get much detail. If you're doing vector art, then that's cool. But I like mine at 300. I think sometimes I might go 600, but it all depends on what your computer can handle. This is something that you also want to keep in mind. How powerful is your computer? I would say right now, if you're doing some kind of digital art, at bare minimum, you may want to be at 4 to 6 gigs of RAM at bare minimum. Mine is 8. I do need to do an upgrade, but 8 does fine with me. I can record and draw at the same time, so this is fine for me. So those are what pixels are. Pixels are associated with raster images, and a vector image is going to be just a regular. It's that line quality, no matter how much you zoom in, with the exception of what you saw on Mischief, which I think is a combination of both. I don't know how they did that. But your vector line, that's going to be much more for your logos and things like that. But if you're just trying to do digital painting and digital coloring, you'll be just fine with this. And that's what Photoshop does. Photoshop is a raster pixel image program. It has some vector capabilities. Obviously, it does have that line tool on it, but it's not normally used for vector art. That's why they have Illustrator. So we're going to hit OK. And you see this change. The canvas itself changed. And you can look at it and tell it already looks like a piece of copy paper. So it's something that you definitely want to keep in mind when you are looking at that. So we've made our little image here. And what you want to do is you want to save it. Now, even though I don't use Photoshop, if you are saving something that has multiple layers and you do not want to merge them down, then you will be saving in what's called a PSD file. So your extensions that you're going to worry about, because you see it's going to maintain all of these layers here, and almost every single, the only program that does not open up a PSD file that I found out is my favorite little favorite little program is Mischief. So there you go. Doesn't have as far as I know, I can't open up a PSD file in it. But every other graphics program can open up a PSD file. If you're working with GIMP or Krita or Manga Studio or Clip Studio Paint, obviously Sketchbook Pro has, and it is PSD. That is the file extension. So PSD means Photoshop document. It's pretty standard. Even though I don't use Photoshop documents, it's, if you're gonna have layers, it's just, that's the one that you are gonna save it in. So if you just want to save it as a flat image, there's a few ways that you could save it in. Let me go ahead and delete this. I'm gonna merge all these down and just delete. I'll just merge all with below. So we got PSD, which is Photoshop. That's a PSD file. When you open it up, you'll get a bunch of layers. We have JPEG, JPG. Let's go ahead and save this. So this is, I'm giving you guys a little, so first of all, when you save something, it's going to go into a folder, and you can put your file name. You can rename the file. I just called it sample. Let's just call it file, because I'm not really going to save it, or I'm going to toss it. It's going to go into, this is my Bane of Empires Daz Studio folder. I use Daz Studio for some reference, for some lighting reference, production wise, and so it'll tell you where it's saving in my favorites. I don't care about that, but what I do care about is under here. So I have TIFF files, which are .tif or .tiff. It's a flat graphics file. It's pretty standard. We got bitmaps, which is BMP. BMP is, I think, more along lines of 3D. I don't really use bitmaps for my drawing purposes. JPEG comes in JPG, JPEG, and JPE. GIF files, those are GIFs. So that's when you see the little GIFs that are online. You can save it like that. PNG files. Now, PNG file, well, let me go back to that. So PXD file is a Photoshop file. Photoshop also saves in TIFF file. Photoshop saves in everything, and the regular PSD files. Now, PNG files, if I want to save it in PNG, and so you can see these are PNG files. PNG files doesn't have, when you save them, more often they don't have any background information. So you can see the little silhouettes up here that I looked at in Daz Studio. The silhouettes are not going to have any background information in them. So when you save your document, and let's say that you drew a figure or whatever, and you want to take it, maybe you want to take it over into Photoshop, and you don't feel like removing the back portion of it, and if you save it as a PNG file, and that's how I use that. So there are different files, but most of the time, if it's just a flat image, you want to save your Photoshop copy of it. You want to save it as a PSD file first. So you want to do first PSD, then you want to save it in JPEG, or you could save it in TIFF. I've been saving everything in JPEG. I don't save a lot of stuff in TIFF. I don't really see that big of a difference in it, to be honest with you. Some people may prefer it when you are working or collaborating with another artist, or you are sending in your work. They may tell you to send it in as TIFF, as a TIFF file. That's just a file extension, and it's on almost every graphics program out there. All the ones that I own, the ones that I showed you, they have all these extensions on them. Or they'll ask you for PNG files, which I've had a client that wanted me to send them the PNG files, and PNG file is going to be a much bigger document too, just to let you know. So that is file. Those are file extensions and how you save things. We covered pixels, And I want to say that that should be enough to get you started, because you know about layers. I just want to go over everything just to make sure. These are special tools like rulers and everything up here. You don't need to get into all that right away. You know what cropping is. You know what the color wheel is. Got line tools, zooming in and out. I think we got everything covered. The only thing that you probably, the one thing that I will definitely show you is, let's go ahead and bring in an image that's scanned. If you scan in an image, you want to keep it somewhere on your computer. So I'm going to pretend like we scanned in an image. So I'm going to say you can either open it up, the image as itself. So you can open recent, or you can add the image. I always choose for import or add image. And let me see here. Let's go back to our DAZ Studio. You can see I got a bunch of different file sizes here. We have, these are my PNG files. So let's look at, these are in JPEG. So I'm going to open this up. I'm adding this image. Now you see it comes in, it's giving this little marquee tool. This is letting me know, and all I'm doing is zooming in and out. This is letting me know, do I want to make this image bigger? I can move it around, make that bigger, I can make it smaller. It's how I want to bring this image in. So if you scan an image in, you're bringing in your image. You decide that this is what you want. That's great. So now if you go ahead and look over at your, if you look over here, you can see that there's a little white portion around it. Maybe I don't want that, so perhaps I want to hit multiply and change this into a multiply layer. And what a multiply layer will do for you, so let's do this. I'm going to get a nice big brush here. So actually, let's keep that on multiply. If you notice, I can go underneath the level underneath, and I can maintain, it multiplies, so I can still see my lines here. That's a method of coloring that some people use, because you see if I take it off of multiply, well, what would happen if I put that in a multiply? It wouldn't really do much of anything. But if I took this top layer and put it on normal, you wouldn't be able to see it, because I brought in an image on a JPEG file that already has a background to it. So that's something that you want to be aware of when you are bringing in an image. And you can decide how you want to do this. If you want to go ahead and add some color on top of it, or it depends on how you decide that you want to add color or paint or whatever. But this is not about painting or adding color. This is just about the basics to get you started. So that's just something that you want to keep in mind early on. And I think that with that said, I think I've went over everything that I want to go over as far as knowing the basics and the terminology, and you should be able to be on your way to get started to drawing digitally.